Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Thomas K.R. Stovall here. If you have been following this journey, you know that this is part of my Amplify daily routine. This is a daily revenue growth newsletter that I am doing for the entirety of 2024. So for the entire year, I am taking principles, tools, frameworks, exercises from my real paid programs. I charge 5 figures a month when I consult, 3 month engagements minimum. So these are things that I use in real life in my $30,000 plus consulting engagements, down to my three, four, $5,000 group training programs for experts who are launching online courses, memberships, intensives, challenges, etc. All of the stuff that I use in real life for lead generation, lead capture, customer narrative, excuse me, avatar framing, pain framing, like all the stuff, attraction-based sales, every single thing that I use, I'm going to be taking my real life stuff that, again, are from paid programs, and I'm just giving y'all bits and pieces every single day for 2024. That's why I call it Amplify Daily. So this is a free newsletter. This is quite transparently my way of forcing myself to stay consistent about content creation. If I stand on a rooftop and make a declaration and everybody's looking, what I'm not going to do is be the guy who flakes out and doesn't keep his word and write that email and push send every single day. So one post on social media, one email every single day that amplifies your revenue. And for today, what I'm going to be covering is, oh, and you can get on the list at thomasKRStovall.com. So what I'm covering today, I just finished up a partnership launch. From time to time, I'll do launch partnerships with other individuals, other brands, where I come in and I basically will architect their launch campaign and split the change. So did this with a couple really smart guys out of New Orleans. They run an eight-figure clothing brand, and they've got an online course that, really an online education community for other brand owners that they were ready to really take to the next level. So we partnered on the launch. I architected, designed the entire thing. And basically last week, over about a day and a half, we did somewhere in the neighborhood of about $57,000 on the launch. And that was warm network, existing audience, handful of emails, handful of social media posts, very deep dive storytelling, very deep dive on customer avatar work to make sure the narrative was accurate, no ads, none of that. And that was really on the low end. You know, we talked about it afterward, and they were kind of dipping their toe in the water. They have a large social media following, and they barely touched it at all. It was all, for the most part, just kind of emails and storytelling. And we're going to be doing some more stuff together, but we barely even touched the social media. So this was all amplifying mostly just the email list. So, you know, what I want to share with y'all today is behind the scenes a little bit. And I'm going to share over the next few days, different aspects of what made this campaign really successful. I'm going to show you how I storytell. I'm going to show you how I storyboard. I'm going to show you how I take those emails that I write and transfer those to the stories that we tell visually and with video and captions and stuff on social media, and how those posts went viral immediately on their timeline, and why. It's predictable when you're telling certain types of stories. And what else do I want to show you? We're just going to get into it. I'm going to keep this organic, and as I see things to share, I'm just going to share. But today, I want to share how it starts. Everybody sees the outcome, and they're like, "Man, how do you do these warm network campaigns and generate these kinds of results?" And the devil is, I should say, the dollars are in the details. These details that most people never care to get into. And when I start asking, you know, I'll drop into people's DMs, text messages at different times, and I'll ask them about their campaigns, about their business. And I've got a million questions, and their eyes glaze over, right? Because they just want the outcome. But the reality is, these details on the front end, the discovery, the detailed thinking, that's what gets you to these outcomes. So when we started this campaign, I spent literally like 72 hours just asking questions and getting clear on the current state of what they've done up to this point. Because I needed context. You don't go to an audience and start to make invitations, offers, and requests without context of what they've been getting so far and what their experience is and likely what their narrative is, right? So I asked a ton of questions and got very clear on from because they've been in business since January of 20, no, basically December of 2022. So I asked a ton of questions to find out what had they done so far to generate leads. If they'd run ads, what was the structure of the ads? What was the call to action on the ads? Where did people land? What were they offered? You know, how many different events did you have? Were they live? Were they evergreen? So I went through several rounds of really just getting line item clear on exactly what happened at each stage because I need to understand the stages of the sales cycle in order for me to really understand, okay, what was the customer thinking at each stage? Now that I understand the stages, show me the actual ads that you ran. I want to see the copy. I want to see the CTA. I want to see the visual. I want to see the whole context and know what your customer was likely thinking. And I also want to know where the gaps are in terms of narrative that when we fill them in, we're going to get a predictable result. So a lot of work, a lot of thinking, a lot of depth, a lot of questions, but the questions are the answers. So once I got a level of really good clarity on what they have been doing, then I start to dig in a little bit on the customer avatars. So what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for how to stage out the avatars. I need to give them names. You want to name your customer avatar so that you can distinguish them in your mind. Once they have a name, you can see them better. And so I want to figure out what are the characteristics, and I'm looking to start naming the customer avatar. I want to know what their concerns are. I want to know what has them be stuck at each stage. I want to know what the stages are. And so what I teased out for them that they didn't have was I took a look at everything. Once I saw all of the data, then what emerged for me were 5 clear milestones inside of their customer avatar's journey, even though they didn't have their avatar named, they didn't have these milestones stated. I was able, like, once I asked all the questions, the milestones began to emerge. And those milestones were for these brand owners, had they made their first 1,000 yet? Right? That's milestone one. Had they made their first 2,500? That's milestone two. Had they made their first 10,000? And it was interesting to find that the jump was from 2,500 to 10,000, right? The fourth milestone was had they made at least 10,000 3 months in a row, right? And then after that, the next milestone is 100 grand. And it was amazing to get behind the details of the business because for me, an expert, where I find whether or not somebody's an expert is whether or not they can articulate the pain and the predictable challenges and roadblocks that their customer avatars are going to be facing. And so when we talk through each one of those milestones, they were able to communicate to me, well, if you haven't hit your first 1,000, here's what you're struggling with. These two things, these three things. Cool. Now that you tell me what they're struggling with, can you also tell me the predictable solution that if they implement it, will get them past that 1,000 right away? And for each one of those stages, from 0 to 1,000, they were able to communicate that. From 1,000 to 2,500, there's a different set of concerns. There's a different set of roadblocks. Here's exactly what they do. If they don't do these two things, they can sit in that $1,000 to having made my first 2,500 bucket months to a year. But if they actually do this, it's literally a week to two, and they are out of there. And then once you hit that first 2,500, getting to your first 10 grand is actually reasonably simple. So once I was able to get them to clearly articulate the challenges, the milestones, and the solutions specific to each milestone and each challenge inside of that milestone, now we're able to create the framing. Now we're able to create the customer narrative. Now we're able to create the pain frame messaging around each one of those milestones, because what we know based on their experience is if they're in this milestone, they have this pain. And if they have this pain, we know what the narrative is in their mind based on again, their experience, they were able to tell me what the customers say. At those stages, once you have the language that your customers use inside of certain pain points, you can now create your marketing and your sales frames literally using that exact language, right? So this is something that I outlined for them just so they can understand where we were going in terms of customer avatar framing. In the last few days, if y'all haven't been around the list long, I just did 3 days, the last 3 days, specifically outlining how I think about customer avatar framing and how I actually, the exercises that we use inside my paid programs to do that. But here's kind of a high level that you want to think about. You can't laser beam target your ideal customer at each stage of their journey if you haven't clearly identified the following. Number one, the exact characteristics in their thinking, their speaking, their actions, or outcomes that are a dead giveaway of what stage they're in. You want to be able to articulate that because you want that stuff living inside of um, some sort of quiz right at the first stage of your funnel. Readiness assessment, find your XYZ score, quiz, whatever it's going to be. You want to be able to capture that data that allows you to segment and see immediately which one of those boxes that your person fits in. So if you notice in the front of just about every single funnel that I have, I'm always going to be capturing data first. Some people they're comfortable with just letting any and everybody into their funnel and they'll figure it out later. The absolute best time to grab the most information is at the first point where somebody hits your funnel. Sure, it's a little bit more friction, but they're still interested. Once they're in your list, it's very rare that they're going to come back later and go to another forum and give you more information. So now you have this random person in your list. You don't really know anything about them, and you're just offering stuff up. Hey, you interested in this? You interested in that? Why would you do that? Why would you do that when right up front, the first time that they're interested, you can grab useful data so that you know exactly where to send them and the invitations, offers, and requests to make that when they see him, they're going to be like, man, they know me. This is exactly what I wanted. I know because you just told me. But I don't know that unless I ask you. And I need to be able to ask you qualified questions so I don't waste your time because you're compelled to answer if you see the question is qualified. Like, oh, okay, they actually know me pretty well. I'm this and I'm that and I'm this. So we have to do that work up front so that we know what to put in the quiz, et cetera, so that it's aligned, but we can get to answers pretty quickly. Even something like this for the my little Amplify Daily thing, this is a new sort of form that I'm using. I'm calling this like my access list. I'm using this on a few different on a few different iterations in my business, but this allows me to create a narrative. I call this the access list. This is nothing but kind of a qualified quiz that opts them into my list very quickly. So up top, I'm going to give you enough to pique some interest if you're the person I'm looking for, and on the bottom, I'm going to tell you exactly who you should be if you're going to jump on this list. And then a video that in 60 seconds gives a little bit of context, a little bit of social proof, a little bit of authority about who I am, what I've done. And if you're this person looking for these kinds of outcomes, you're like, I think I'm going to jump on this list. And when you jump on the list, I'm looking to gather a little bit of data as you get on. And I'll show you really quick one other implementation in one of my other offers. This is the exact same format for this access list, but in this case, I'm using it at the front end of a 14-day challenge. And so I'm using this launch your property preservation business today, and a little bit of context here. Have you been wanting to launch this, but you've been a little bit nervous? Go here and launch this business today. And here's a 1:49 video giving them a little bit of clarity about that. And then join the access list. It's just a little quick pop-up and it's conditional forms. They put their information in. Never do these long forms where all the stuff is right there in the visual view. It's overwhelming. I make it where literally every piece of information they put in, I'm now unfolding the form a little bit at a time and it's sectioned out. So if I had more information, and I regularly do, then I would ask it and they would just go section by section through the quiz. But because I know that after they submit this, they're going to be taken to the actual, excuse me, they're going to be taken to the 14-day challenge page. I don't worry about I don't worry about gathering that information up front because I can get it on the registration page. Once they're actually ready to register, I grab all that information. But neither here nor there, just giving you all a little bit extra game. Now back to this here. Number two, you need to know the exact pain that they are predictably in. What specific result they are actively trying to produce and failing to produce. I talked about this in my customer avatar training that I just did the last few days. That the only place, if you're launching a new product, program, or service, or launching a new company, the only two places that you want your people to be in mentally, and in terms of their experience, you want to sell to either a person who is actively failing at producing a very predictable, a very specific result that is consequential, meaning they have a loss of time, money, resources, identity, relationships, etc., because they are failing at producing this result. It's consequential for them. That is a person who is in pain, real pain, and they are looking for a solution. And the second person is someone who has failed in the past to produce that consequential result. And they are getting ready to move into a space where they have to try to do it again. And they are scared out of their mind that they're going to have the same problem. Those two people are motivated to actually buy for a couple reasons. One, they have context for the solution. They know the pain that they were in. Again, loss of time, money, identity, resources, relationships. They can quantify that pain experientially, and they can say, yeah, it will be worth $5,000 for me to never feel that again, for me to never go through that again. That's worth it for me. Whereas a lot of times we confuse people who really want a result. Like, I really want to have a $50,000 launch. I really do. That's it. They may sound like they're really serious, but they have no pain of having spent $10,000 in 6 months putting together this launch, writing all this copy, missing nights with the family, and having launched this thing to crickets and been embarrassed. Like, they can't quantify that pain. And they also don't have that experience to look back on and say, you know what, I thought I knew what I was doing and I didn't. And my failure was there to prove it to me. I'm ready to pay somebody $5,000 to do it for me. That's different than somebody who says, oh yeah, like, I want to work with the best. I'm ready. $5,000? Oh, I don't know about that. I think, like, I'm pretty smart. I think I can do it on my own. Great, go do that. You go fail first, so that when I'm ready to sell you, you actually know that you don't know what you're doing. I don't have to teach you that you don't know what you're doing. You already know that you don't, and you got the failure to prove it. So I sell to people who failed at something or are failing at something when it's time to launch something new, because I need fast results. When you're launching a new thing, you want to have social proof as quickly as possible. You want to have case studies of people who see that thing and are buying that thing, so you can tell the next group of people, oh my goodness, look at how this thing is going. People are jumping off the shelf and into this, and you probably ought to think twice. We don't have it's limited availability, and when you say that, be truthful about it. Do not use fake scarcity because people can see through it. So build scarcity in, limit the availability so that you can say there's limited availability, and so that predictably when it sells out on the first run, again, launch, you have that social proof so that next time around, when you're ready to go wider, you've got all that evidence of people who've jumped in, got the result. So a lot of it, you want to design the environment to make sure that you get that evidence and social proof, which means speed of transaction. So when you launch, you want to be launching to people who are in real pain. Number three, the predictable roadblocks you need to know that they're going to have in order to overcome. I talked about this earlier, to move to the next level. You got to know what those roadblocks are. You're not the expert if you don't know what the roadblocks are that are predictable, that your person who you sell to is going to face at every single stage in the process. You're somebody who knows a lot. There's nothing wrong with that. But the expert can look at the 100 variables and they can say, these are the three things. Given the considerations, given the variables, these are the three things that you need to look at. And depending on which one, here's what you're going to need to do. And I can test each one of these three. The person who just knows a bunch of stuff says, oh my goodness, yeah, I can tell you it's going to be, it's going to be, it could be one of these things. I know how to like look at all these different areas, but there's a lot of things it could be. It could be any number of these things, any number of these 100 things. That's the person who knows a lot. The expert can say, it could be any of those number of 100 things, but like I can ask you a few qualifying questions and I can tell you with very clear specificity, it's going to be one of a handful of things. And I can ask those questions in 1 or 2 minutes because I've got enough experience to know what those roadblocks are going to be given the context here. So number 4, the inaccurate, misguided actions they're likely to be currently focused on taking, the false beliefs they currently hold about what exact things they need to be doing right now and the order they need to be doing them in. Number 6, the exact roadmaps they need to follow in order to go from the hell they're in, pain, to the heaven they're trying to get to by overcoming the predictable roadblocks. That's the ideal outcome. And again, this should live like blueprinted, step-by-step action checklist for each stage in their growth journey. If you're going to be able to clearly articulate, you're here, like this place has a name. Here's our growth path. And on our growth path, there are our milestones. You're here at this milestone. It has a name. The things you're going to be facing to get from this milestone to that milestone are these. And here's how you get by them. And by the way, we can articulate this path all the way to the real outcome that you want. And feel free to have this blueprint. You need to have that. We'll give that to you. Now, the how is what you really need. The what isn't what you need, but that's how you know that I'm the expert. The how to get through these different milestones is what you need. That's what you ought to pay us for. And number 7, you need to be able to articulate the programs that we have that give them the roadmaps and resources they need at each step and at the right time of their journey. And each of the different programs should correspond directly to stages in their customer ascension journey. So this is probably enough for now. Again, this is just me getting into detail once I saw these milestones, now asking questions about them. This is the work, y'all. This is the work. So when y'all see, hey, did a $57,000 in sales in 2 hours or 3 hours, this is the work that goes in every single time behind the scenes, all of the questions, all of the details before we ever even get to crafting an offer, before we ever even get to deciding on what visuals to use or what kind of funnel journey is going to be most appropriate. These details are how I get to know the exact customer avatar. And that's why I said in the last few days, what people don't realize is not knowing your customer avatar is costing you thousands of dollars. It is having you miss tens to hundreds of thousands of dollars and having you waste months to years of chasing the wrong people with the wrong message that if you did the work up front, you could amplify your business by volumes. So after that work is done, was done, that's when we get into this stuff right here. And I don't know how y'all plan your campaigns, but for my campaigns, we get into line item detail about the narrative, day by day, what software platforms are using, whether the narratives are public or private, if they're doing a teaser video, what's the narrative here, where is it being shared, YouTube or Facebook or wherever, line item detail. So y'all, I want you to understand the dollars are in the details. The dollars are in the frameworks that are predictable, that could be produced over and over. After we did all that work, I have a full-time design and development team. I had my team get rid of their ClickFunnels and build out inside of my frameworks 2 separate websites for the high ticket versus the low ticket product they had. We ended up only using a couple pages of them because we didn't. It just didn't even need to be the whole thing. But my team still built the whole thing out anyway, and we'll use them for other stuff. But we did that in 24 hours. These are funnels that in a past life would have taken several weeks to do the work that we did, all the customer avatar work, all the visuals, all the web design stuff. 24 hours in the entire campaign from front to back took, including the what's it called, the discovery, the several days of discovery. It took about a week total for us to do the whole thing, start to finish. And I'll get into the emails and the storyboard and probably tomorrow. But this is the work, y'all. Get into these details, really start to understand who your customer is on a detailed level, what their pain is, what the things are that they are truly struggling with, what those milestones are that they need to be able to articulate on their way to get into the next step, and what the solutions are specific to each milestone. And then crafting your offers defined by that pain in those solutions, in those milestones. Your offers should align perfectly with solving those problems. When you do that, you will find that your conversion is going to go way up and your sales cycles are going to get much shorter. With that said, I think this was day 5 on the Amplify Daily Journey. I hope that this has been valuable for you. We're just getting started. This is light work. Y'all, we have so much more to go around marketing, around sales, around contracts, around fulfillment, around project and process management, the entire thing. We're going to get into it in 2024. All right. Appreciate y'all being with me. Y'all take care.